In 2019, a company that rented out office space was valued at $47 billion. Not a tech company, not a pharmaceutical giant, not an aerospace firm with government contracts. A company that took long-term leases on buildings, put in some couches and kombucha on tap, and rented the desks back out by the month. $47 billion. That made it, briefly, the most valuable startup in the United States. And then, in the span of about 6 weeks, the whole thing detonated. The IPO collapsed. The valuation cratered by over 80%. Thousands of employees lost their jobs. SoftBank, the Japanese investment giant that had poured billions into the company, was left holding wreckage. And the man at the center of it all, a barefoot, tequila-drinking, messianic Israeli entrepreneur named Adam Neumann, walked away with nearly $1 billion in personal compensation, while his company fell apart around him. How does something like that happen? How does a co-working space convince the smartest investors in the world that it's worth the same as a Fortune 500 company? How does one man build a $47 billion empire out of essentially nothing and then watch it implode in real time while somehow still coming out ahead? WeWork's collapse is one of the defining business stories of the last decade. Not because the failure was unique, startups fail every day, but because of the scale of the delusion involved and how many serious, intelligent people chose to participate in it. This is a story about the seductive power of a certain kind of vision, about how Silicon Valley's obsession with disruption and exponential growth created the perfect conditions for a charismatic man to convince the world that renting desks was a spiritual mission. About billions of dollars flowing toward a company that was, at its core, losing money on every single transaction. But more than anything, this is a story about Adam Neumann, a man who described himself not as a CEO, but as a prophet, who told investors he wanted to become the world's first trillionaire, who built a company that looked, to those inside it, less like a corporation and more like a cult. What happened to WeWork didn't happen in spite of the people watching. It happened because of them. And that is the part that should keep you up at night. The prophet with no shoes. Adam Neumann arrived in New York in the mid-2000s with little money, enormous ambition, and a presence that people struggled to describe in ordinary terms. He was tall, charismatic, and spoke about business the way evangelists speak about salvation, with a certainty that felt almost physical. He had grown up in Israel, spent time in a kibbutz, served in the Israeli Navy, and carried with him an unusually fluid relationship with conventional rules. He started several businesses that went nowhere. He was not, by any objective measure, a proven entrepreneur. But Adam Neumann had something that very few people possess. He had the ability to make whoever he was talking to feel like they were standing at the edge of something enormous. Like history was being made in the room. Like the only wrong move was to walk away. In 2010, he co-founded WeWork with Miguel McKelvey in a single building in Manhattan's Soho neighborhood. The idea was straightforward. Lease a large commercial space. Subdivide it. Fill it with freelancers, small startups, and remote workers who needed somewhere professional to sit. Charge them a monthly fee. It was not a new idea. Shared office spaces had existed for decades, but Neumann framed it differently. WeWork wasn't a real estate company, he insisted. It was a community, a movement, a physical embodiment of a new way of living and working. The mission statement he crafted was almost comically grandiose: to elevate the world's consciousness. Most people would have laughed. Investors did not. When billions became a religion, by the mid-2010s, WeWork was expanding at a pace that left the industry breathless. New locations opened across New York, then across the country, then across the world. The spaces were beautifully designed exposed brick, glass walls, artisanal coffee, the aesthetic language of creative ambition. Young professionals flooded in. The waiting lists grew long. And the money followed. SoftBank's Masayoshi Son met Neumann in 2017. The meeting lasted 12 minutes. Sun then committed to investing billions of dollars into WeWork, eventually pouring in over $10 billion across multiple rounds. Sun later said that in that brief encounter, he sensed Neumann's animal instinct and decided to back it. 12 minutes. $10 billion. With that kind of backing, WeWork's valuation became untethered from financial reality. Neumann used the money to expand faster than the business could sustainably support, signing massive long-term leases on buildings around the world while the company bled cash at an alarming rate. In 2018 alone, WeWork lost $1.9 billion. The more it grew, the more it lost. But here is the part that makes this story genuinely surreal. Nobody in the room was asking the obvious questions. Or if they were, the answers they received were somehow satisfying enough to keep the checks coming. Because Adam Neumann wasn't just selling office space, he was selling belief. And for a while, belief was enough. The empire built on sand. Behind the gleaming co-working spaces and the inspirational town halls, WeWork's internal reality was becoming increasingly difficult to explain. Neumann had structured the company in a way that gave him extraordinary personal control. Through a dual-class share structure, he held voting power so disproportionate that he could theoretically override any board decision. He was not just the CEO. He was, functionally, the company itself. He used that power in ways that raised eyebrows even among loyalists. He personally owned several buildings that he then leased back to WeWork, meaning his own company was paying him rent. He trademarked the word "we" and then charged WeWork $4 million to use it. He flew on private jets, sometimes reportedly with marijuana stashed on board. He talked openly about living forever and ruling the world. The culture inside WeWork reflected the man at its top. New employees described an atmosphere of intense loyalty and groupthink. Neumann's speeches at company events had the quality of revival meetings. Alcohol flowed freely. The line between startup and sect was, at times, difficult to locate. Former employees spoke of being swept up in the energy of it, of genuinely believing, for a time, that they were part of something transformative. Then, gradually, a different picture emerged. Of a company where basic financial controls barely existed. Where enormous decisions were made on instinct. Where questioning the vision was treated as something close to betrayal, but the reckoning was coming. And when it arrived, it moved fast. The week the curtain fell. In August 2019, WeWork filed its S-1 prospectus, the document required for a company to go public on the stock market. It was, in the polite language of financial journalism, extraordinary reading. The document revealed the full scale of WeWork's losses. It revealed the leaseback arrangements that enriched Neumann personally. It revealed the governance structure that gave him near total control. It revealed that his wife, Rebecca Neumann, had the power to select his successor if he ever left the company. It used the word community 150 times. Wall Street read it and reacted with something between confusion and alarm. Analysts who had previously accepted the $47 billion valuation without much scrutiny suddenly found their skepticism. The IPO, which Neumann had been counting on to stabilize the company's finances, began to unravel in real time. Within weeks, the valuation had been slashed. Then, slashed again. Potential investors walked away. The IPO was postponed. Board pressure mounted. And in September 2019, Adam Neumann resigned as CEO. He left with a package that included approximately $1.7 billion in stock sales and loans, plus a consulting fee of $185 million just to stay away from the company he had built. Thousands of WeWork employees were subsequently laid off. Many lost unvested stock options that were now essentially worthless.